This video is about making bar graphs. So first of all, let's talk about what a bar graph is. We're going to talk about bar graphs and line graphs today. But first of all, with a bar graph, what kinds of things would you use a bar graph for? And it would be to show the frequency for non-numerical data. Typically, you would use things that you wouldn't put in a histogram in a bar graph. So that means that you can use qualitative data in a bar graph. Now you can use numerical data also in a bar graph, but typically your bar graph is used with your qualitative. Histograms are used with your quantitative. So because they're very much related, we do know that making a bar graph is being similar to a histogram. One of the biggest differences is about the bars. In a histogram, the bars touch, where in a bar graph, the bars do not touch. And I know everybody thinks that's probably a little silly thing, but it is a distinction that's made about the two different kinds of graphs. You can make bar graphs with a vertical or horizontal bar. You just need to change your axis up in order to do that. You can also make multi-bar graphs. And that would be when, say for instance, you wanted to break your graph down into something for men and something for women, but it's on the same topic. So you have a bar for men and a bar for women. And so that's something that's pretty easy to do with your bar graphs. Now, something that's also pretty much related to bar graphs is a pictograph. So I'm just going to throw that in there. Also, the difference kind of with pictographs and bar graphs is that you use a picture or a symbol to represent a quantity, and you repeat that symbol or picture over and over again until you build up to the particular total quantity that you want to represent. Now, one of the things that you have to be aware of with pictographs, people often will use pictures and just kind of try to make them bigger. Like you have a small picture and you want to enlarge it for the next item and make it bigger for the next item and just use one picture. And that is a very misleading way to make a pictograph. And so that is something you want to avoid. Because that can be very misleading not only to the sizes but also it's just a bad method to use in making graphs. You do see it very often, but it is not a good technique to use. So you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So let's make a couple of graphs and just review how to go through doing this. I have some data here for you. This represents the vowels, the number of vowels in a sentence. So for the A vowel, we counted it occurring twice. The E occurred 7 times. The I occurred 4 times. The O occurred 4 times. And the U occurred once. And so we're going to create a bar graph to represent that information. If we wanted to make this a horizontal one, we would put the frequency here on the bottom and draw our scale. It's always important that you use equal units and that you label your units. That is also important. You also want to provide labels on each side of your axis. You also need to be sure that you are including a title with each graph that you do. The title should be reflective about what's being shown in the graph. And so the A goes up to 2. The E goes up to 7. The I goes up to 4. O goes up to 4 also. And U goes up to 1. So there is our bar graph. It is a horizontal bar graph for that particular set of data. I'm going to do a double bar graph next. With our data, we have the income for males and females back in the 1900s. We have the 1960s, the 1950s, and the 1970s. So for the males, we had income of $2,500. For the females, we had income of $1,000. In the 60s, the males had income of $5,000, and the females had $2,000. In the 70s, the males had $8,000, and the females had $3,000. So again, this one's going to be a vertical bar graph. So we're going to look at our axis first of all. So with our units, we're going to do across the bottom are going to be our years. And since we're doing a double bar graph, we have to either do some kind of label or some kind of key to try to figure out what the different bars mean. And so I'm going to shade one of the bars, and I'm not going to shade one of the bars. So my unshaded is going to be male, and my shaded is going to be females. So So I'm going to provide a key that way. This is going to represent my income in thousands of dollars. And this is representing the year. So in the 50s, my men were 2,500. In the 60s, my men were 5,000. And in the 70s, my men were 8,000. Now I need to go through and put my females in. So I had 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000. And then a title for my graph. So again, this shows very quickly some characteristics about bar graphs, some things to remember about bar graphs, and how to do a bar graph.